Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making an Elsbeth inspired scarf. And this easy to follow step-by-step crochet tutorial is available in both right and left-handed, so please check the description box below to find the version that suits you best. And if you want to follow along with written pattern, all of my patterns are written in plain English and available on my website, secretyarnery.com. It's so cute, right? So this scarf, let me just tell you, the great thing about this tutorial, I walk you through making the granny squares step by step, as well as joining them together in continuous join as you go. And if you have been scared of continuous join as you go, this video is for you. I walk you through absolutely step by step and show you what we are doing from start to finish. So all of this joining is just two tails to sew in. One when we start and one when we finish. It is a game changer. So go ahead and follow along. You're going to love it if you haven't done continuous join as you go before. And if you are doing the Elsbeth inspired crochet along, go ahead and tag us with Elsbeth Mal 24 so we can see your gorgeous work and you have a chance to win a free pattern. For your Elsbeth inspired scarf, you are going to need 6 different colors of yarn. This is just regular 4-weight worsted acrylic, so a size 10 if you're in Australia, or any sort of soft acrylic yarn that you have on hand. You'll need 6 different colors. That includes the join. For the amounts, the most you need is for this cream color. So cream color here plus the join. You will need 156 grams of the cream color. Next, for the orange and the light blue, that's the next largest amount you need. That's 60 grams each. Next is the dark blue and the light pink. You need 24 grams each of those. And last is this cute hot pink right here, and that is just 12 grams. So basically, 1 ball of 5 colors and 2 balls of your joining color. With this size 4 worsted weight acrylic yarn, I am using a 6mm crochet hook. You will need a needle for sewing in your ends and a pair of scissors. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. Starting with our center color, just make a slip knot. We're going to do a chain 3 to start, a chain 3 ring. So make a slip knot, pop that onto your hook, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go into that first chain right on top of our slip knot to form our ring. So just pop your hook in. It doesn't really matter where. Now we're going to take a minute and get ourselves situated. We want a U shape underneath our hook, and we want to hold that open with our finger and thumb with our tail following along. So hold it open with your finger and thumb, make a slip stitch, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And right where you're holding it open, go back in and make 2 double crochets. 1, and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2. And make 3 more double crochets into the center of your ring, working over that tail. And if I'm going too fast or too slow, just hit that gear on the video and slow me down or speed me up. Chain 2 more, 1 and 2. And into the same center of your ring, going over your tail, 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now you can grab those first stitches and the stitches you just made, slide them apart. That'll give you some more room. We want all of our stitches to lay down nice and flat along the center of that ring. So chain 2. And in to the center of the ring, going over our tail, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain to join. So just right into the top of that chain. We want 2 strands on the top of our hook. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join and chain 1. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure, and that finishes round 1. To start round 2, grab your next color of yarn. And we want to be working in to the back of our work. So this is the front. It has those pretty little V's facing up along the edge. We want that facing down. So our little macaronis are facing up. And just pop your hook into any corner that you didn't join. So not the same corner where we joined. Just pop your hook into any other corner. Loop of your next color on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail. You can just hold it along that top edge of your work and chain 2. 1 and 2. So that counts as our first double crochet. And into the same corner space, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. And now we can jump over to the next corner, and whenever you get to your yarn where you join, just hold it along the edge of your work. So wrap your yarn and go into that corner space. We're going to do a corner into the corner. So corners are 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all into the same space. So there's our 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. Just like that. And we're going to do that into each corner. These next 2 corners right there, we're going to do the same thing into each of those. So wrap your yarn and 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into the corner space. There's my 3 double crochets and my chain 2. Here's my last 3 double crochets, all into the same corner space. Like that. And now you can pause the video and do that into the last corner right here. So pause the video, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into this last corner space as well. If you worked over that center tail, you can cut that off. Let's get it out of the way a little bit. And now into the same corner where we began, you just slide those stitches forward, give yourself some space, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into the same corner space where we began. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the chain to join, just like we did for the last round. And you want 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 2. To start round 3, turn your work. We want to put our hook into a corner where we haven't joined our yarn before. So just pop your hook into that corner space and grab your next color of yarn. Loop of yarn on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top edge of your work so we can work over it a couple stitches, and chain 2. 1 and 2. 2 double crochets into the same corner space. 1 and 2. And into this space along the side, right there, we're going to do 3 double crochets. So sides are always 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And that gets us closer to the corner. Now remember to slow me down or speed me up if I'm going too fast or too slow for you. Into this corner space, we're going to do a corner. So corners always get corners. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There is 3 double crochets, chaining 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. Remember, if you're running out of room, you can slide those stitches back and give yourself some more space. You want your double crochets laying side by side. There, just like that. Now into the space along the side, 3 double crochets. And into the corner, you're going to do a corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into that same corner space. There, just like that. So now you can pause the video and keep working along. Sides, these spaces here, just regular 3 double crochets, and your corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So pause the video, keep working around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, into the same spot where we began, we want to do our 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and slip stitch to the top of that chain to join, making sure you have 2 strands of the chain on the top of your hook. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 3. Now turn your work. We want to be working into the back where our little macaronis are. So our pretty little V's around the edge are facing down. So every row we're turning our work. Find a corner there where we haven't joined our yarn and just pop your hook in. Get your next color. This is the last color for our Elsbeth scarf. Loop of yarn on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top edge of your work so we can work over it a little bit, and chain 2. 1 and 2. Into that same corner space, 2 double crochets. Now into each space along the side, there's 2 spaces for this round. We're going to do 3 double crochets into each. So just jumping straight over, 3 double crochets into the space along the side. And 3 double crochets into the next space along the side. So no matter how big your granny square is, sides are always 3 double crochets. And into the corner space, no matter how big your granny square is, corners always get corners, and corners are always 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's my 3 double crochets into the corner, chaining 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. Just like that. So now I can pause the video, keep working around, 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, into that same corner space where we began, 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join. Slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. 2 strands on the top of your hook, like that. Slip stitch to join and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So that is how we're going to be doing our granny squares. 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we need to make a whole bunch of them. So what you might want to do is make your centers first, and then do the second round, the third round, and the fourth round. So you're just using one color of yarn at a time, and you also know how many you have left to do. For your Elsbeth inspired scarf, you are going to need 12 of this and 12 of these. So 24 altogether, but half the blue version and half the pinky orange version. And that will make your scarf just perfect, just like Elsbeth's. And once your squares are done, take a minute or take an hour, take some time and sew in your tails, all except the last one. The last tail I don't sew in right now. It's easier to sew in after we've joined. But the rest of these tails, just go ahead and get them all sewn in right now. Now, when your granny squares are done and you've sewn in all of your tails except for that last one, we are ready to join, and this is the best part. So now take your granny squares and we're going to arrange them. For Elsbeth's scarf, she does it alternating like a little checkerboard. So one is going to be blue, or blue granny square, and the next is going to be an orangey pink one. And then make sure that they're all facing the same direction. So I'm going to do mine pretty side facing down. Can you see that? So here is the granny square, our pretty little V's around the edges. We want those facing down. We're going to be working into the back of our granny squares to join, or the back of the last row. So make sure all of your granny squares are facing this right direction. And now go ahead and pick up one row. So I'm just picking up one row, just like that. So there's one stack. And I'm going to do that for the other row as well. It's a 2-row scarf. So one row starts with orange and ends with blue, and one row starts with blue and ends with orange. Now we can put one stack away, doesn't matter which one, or not away, just out of the way. And we're ready to start joining this row here. So what we're going to do, we're going to join on one side. So what helps for me is to look at this diagram, and just in my mind, I know that we're joining just along one edge. It feels a little weird, but we're making kind of like a garland, a granny square garland. So we're just joining on one side. So go ahead and grab your yarn, the same color we used for the blue squares, this neutrally kind of color, this cream color. So take your first square and just pop your hook in to any corner that you haven't joined your yarn in. Loop of that cream color on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch. Remember, the back of our stitches are facing up. Drop your tail. You can hold it along the side of your work. And chain 2. 1 and 2. And 2 more double crochets into that same corner space. So this is just like making our granny squares. Nothing scary. Everything is okay. Now into each of these 3 spaces along the side, we're going to do 3 double crochets into each, just like normal, just like we were adding a row to our granny squares. It's super easy. So there's our first set of 3. And our last one along the side. And then our corner right here. But for this row, we're just doing 3 double crochets into every space. Even into our corners, we're just doing this one bottom edge. So 3 double crochets into your corner space. So this is what we're doing for each granny square of our row. So each of these we're joining just like this. So grab your next square. This is where the fun happens. So now we're going to join into this, the first corner, any corner really, but just go into that corner. And all we're going to do, so I'm going to let this square hang now. I'm just going to let it fall down. Grab my next square, wrap your yarn, and I'm going to go into that corner space and make 3 double crochets. So I'm just letting that first granny square hang there. Just ignore it. So there is 2 and 3. So that is our join. That wasn't hard, right? And now into each of the next 4 spaces, because our corners counts as a space, 3 double crochets into each of these spaces. So you can pause the video, keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space on this granny square, and I'll meet you when you get into that corner space, just so we can do that one together. Now into the corner space, 3 double crochets. And if you have a tail, just work over your tail. There, just like that. So now we have joined 2 granny squares just on the one side. That's all we're doing. So easy. So move this along, grab your next granny square from the pile. And now we're going to do the same thing, 3 double crochets into that first corner space. So now I'm going to let both of these hang. I'm not picking them up or holding them. I'm just going to hold my hook, my yarn, and the next square. So wrap your yarn and into that first corner space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now you can pause the video, keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space, including the corner, and I will meet you back here. So there's my 3 double crochets into each space, including the corner. And you can just check if you want. You can look at your work. That's what it looks like. Just a cluster into one and a cluster into the next. No chaining, no nothing in between. We're just joining just like that. So now you can pause the video, keep working along, joining each of your squares, just like this, 3 double crochets into each space, including the corners, and to the next one all the way along. So I'll meet you back when you have joined up all of your granny squares on one side, just like this. Then when you have joined up all of your granny squares on the one side, it looks like a little bunting, doesn't it? That'd actually be really cute for a bunting. But just check that you haven't done anything crazy in between those granny squares. Sometimes you can just do a corner in there automatic. So just make sure each corner only has the 3 double crochets in it and that your granny squares are facing the right direction. Now we can rotate our work. We're going to work around this first granny square. So don't worry about everything hanging underneath. We're just going to be working around the last granny square that we joined all the way around. And we're just going to be doing it like a regular round on a granny square. So this corner is now going to be a real corner. So we're going to do a chain 2 and 3 double crochets into that same space. Three double crochets into each space along the side, and corners, same as they were, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So you can pause the video, just work along this granny square. I'll meet you at that first corner just as a little refresher. But if you are an experienced crocheter, just work around this first square all the way around. If you are a beginner or you're a bit nervous, I will walk you through it step by step. Don't worry. Just follow along, pause the video when you need to, and get caught up, and I'll show you exactly how to join a continuous join as you go. You don't have a whole bunch of ends to sew in. So here we are at our corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into our corner space. So same as we were doing for our granny square. Just like that, right? So chain 2 and 3 more double crochets. So a proper corner into your corner. And again, don't worry about everything hanging underneath your hook or underneath your granny square. Just hold the one square that we're working on and let the rest sit. Sometimes it's easy to use a flat surface or your knees, somewhere where they can just sit and the weight is not hanging off of you. So now you can pause the video, keep working around, 3 double crochets into each space along the side and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. All the way along, I'll meet you when you get back to where this corner is or where we joined, right down here. Now when we get back down around our granny square, we have this spot where it's connected to the next one, that last corner. So we're going to finish off that corner with 3 double crochets into that corner space. Again, ignoring what's attached. We're just working on the one square. So 3 double crochets into that corner space where we started this one, or where it's joined. So there's our 3 double crochets into the same corner where we began, or where we started our join. Now we're going to slip stitch around that skinny bit where they're connected. So just put your hook under and your yarn on top and just make a little slip stitch and chain 1. So that counts as our chain 2 in the corner. And now we're going to rotate our work. So now I'm not going to hold on to this one. I'm going to rotate or just turn my work because we're going to be working along the next granny square now. So this is where you can take a minute and get yourself situated. Get the granny square you've completed above you. I like to work on a flat surface, like a table, a desk, or even my knees in a bed. Love crocheting there too. But just somewhere where you can lay your work out flat. And take a look at what we need to do. So our next granny square here, we need to finish it. So we need to put our 3 double crochets into this corner space where we did our join. We need to go into this corner space here with 3 double crochets. So wrap your yarn and 3 double crochets into the same corner space where we began on our next block, the second block we're joining now. 3 double crochets. And we're going to go in to this next space here in between. So on the block we have finished, we're going to go into this space. We're just going to put our hook straight down into that space and bring our yarn up. Turn our hook and slip stitch. So there's our join. And now we're going to do 3 double crochets into the next space on the block we're working on. So the block I finished, I'm just letting it hang there. I'm not worried about it. I'm not holding it or doing anything. It's just sitting there. I'm doing my 3 double crochets into the block that we are working on. And after those 3 double crochets, I lay everything flat again, and I look for that next space where we're going to join, which is right here. Right? We've joined into this space, so now we join into the next space. So just put your hook down inside that space and bring your yarn up. Turn your hook and slip stitch. Now I let that block go again, the one we have completed, and into the block we're working on, 3 double crochets into the next space. We're just going to be doing this all along this side, and that's how we're going to be joining up our granny squares. So 3 double crochets and then a slip stitch into the next space of the block we have completed. And I put my hook down into the space every time, and I bring my yarn up every time, and I slip stitch. Right, so there's our cute little join. Now into the next space, 3 double crochets on the block we're working on, letting our completed block just hang. and a slip stitch into the next space on the block we have completed. So put your hook down, bring your yarn up, turn your hook and slip stitch. Now we're into our corner space. Same thing, 3 double crochets into the block we're working on. 1, 2, and 3. Slip stitch into the corner space of the block we have completed, and chain 1. Now we can rotate our work a little bit. You can also check that join, how pretty it is. So pretty. And now we're going to work along this side, or 2 sides of our granny square, just like regular. So our slip stitch and chain 1, that counts as our chain 2. So now we're ready to do 3 double crochets into each space, and a corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. So into the block we're working on, finish off that corner, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into the spaces along the sides, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And I'll meet you when we get back down to this last corner right down here. So I've gone all the way around that square, and we are back to where we began, or that last corner space of our block. So go in and finish off that corner with 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And another thing we need to look for, a little tip, is make sure your blocks aren't twisted. Like this is twisted here. Make sure all of your blocks are facing the right direction and there's no twisting in between them, just while we're working on this joining bit. So I finished my 3 double crochets into that corner space. Put your hook down underneath that skinny bit and slip stitch. So bring your yarn back and slip stitch and chain 1. Just like that. And now get yourself situated. So finished work above you and the block we're working on in front of us, just kind of like this. So what we have finished is up above. What we're working on is what we can see right here, close to us. And we need to finish off that corner of our next block. So we've completed 2. We've joined 2 blocks now. We're working on the 3rd. And we're going to do this all the way down our chain. So this is how we're going to do it. Same as before, wrap your yarn and finish off that corner with 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now find the next space on the block above and slip stitch to join. 3 double crochets into the next space. Into the next space, pop your hook down and slip stitch. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. We're just working all the way along the row, same as we did before. And we're going to do this for all the way along our row. So this is pretty much the repeat for this row. Into the next space, slip stitch to join. And into the next space of the block we're working on, 3 double crochets. And if that square or what we've finished kind of gets in your way, just move it a little bit away so it can hang nicely. And finish off the block we're working on, 3 double crochets into that space. And a slip stitch to join into the blocks we have finished. So now into our corner, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the corner space, slip stitch to join. and chain 1. Rotate your work. So now we're going to work around this block on the 2 sides. So we're going to finish off our corner with 3 double crochets. And now you can pause the video, keep working around, 3 double crochets into each space, a proper corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into that corner, 3 double crochets into the space along the side. And when we get down here, this is where we're going to do our 3 double crochets, slip stitch around this skinny bit, and chain 1. So that's the only tricky part right down there. So pause the video, keep working around, and I'll meet you when we get, well, I think it's kind of fun, when we get to this fun part right down there. So when you have worked around that square, that block, and you are back to this first corner space right there, we're going to go in and finish that corner with 3 double crochets into the same corner space that we joined. Now make sure your granny squares aren't twisted. Make sure that that is all. If it's twisted, it can look like that, where your stitches are just facing the wrong way. It could even look like that, where you actually have twisted, but the stitches are still facing up. So just make sure it's laying nice and flat, like that. And we're going to slip stitch around that skinny bit. So put your hook under, grab your yarn, and slip stitch just around the skinny part and chain 1. Now we have finished with this blue block, so or whatever color yours is. Get your completed work above you. So now you can pause the video and keep joining this row the same as we joined these 2 or these 3 blocks right here. We're going to do the same thing, just working, doing our 3 double crochets into the same corner space and slip stitching into the space above. 3 double crochet slip stitch all the way along. At the corners, same as we did, so 3 double crochets, slip stitch, chain 1. Work all the way around the block and then join just like we did right here. So pause the video, join up the rest of this row, and I will meet you to start the second row. When you have joined up all 12 of your squares, at the end of the row of that very last block, that is where we're going to finish. We are not going to be crocheting down on this side. So that finishes the second part of joining. Now we're going to start joining our second row. So get your second stack of blocks ready. And we're going to be turning our work. Our finished work is always above us when we're doing any sort of joining. So our finished work above us. There is my extra blocks for the second row. And grab the next one. Remember, they're going to be alternating like a checkerboard. So whenever we are joining on to an orangey pink, we're going to be attaching the blue. So, and also remember to be working into the same side of your squares. So the back of your last round. So here's my last stitch from that last side. I'm just going to grab my new square and do 3 double crochets into that new square. So same as we were joining before, just to start, just for this first chiclet or this first shell. Now we're going to turn ourselves around so that these shells are facing each other, the pretty stitches, just like that. So pop your hook down into the corresponding space on the block we have finished and slip stitch to join. Wrap your yarn and we're going to do 3 double crochets into the next space on the block we are joining. Get everything laying down nice and flat so you can see that next space is right there. So pop your hook down into that work and bring up your yarn to slip stitch. and 3 double crochets into the next space on the block we are working on. Lay everything down, find the next space, corresponding space on the work we have finished, and just pop your hook down and bring your yarn up to slip stitch. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. And we're going to be doing this for the whole row, all the way across our scarf. So it's super easy. Just take your time, relax. 3 double crochets into the block we are working on, and a slip stitch into the block we have finished. We're doing that all the way along. So now when we get to our corner, 3 double crochets into the block we're working on. Get everything laying down nice and flat. And then slip stitch into the space between those 2 blocks. Into that space, we're just going to go in and slip stitch. Grab your next block. And we're going to just start with our 3 double crochets. So right after that slip stitch, wrap your yarn and into that space, 3 double crochets. Into the corner space, the first corner space of the new block that we are joining. Just like that. So they're just going to be hanging loose for this row. Now into this space after the join on the next block we have completed, slip stitch. See how those line up there? Just like that. And now 3 double crochets into the next space on the block we are joining. Get everything laying out nice and flat. And into the next space on the block we have completed, slip stitch to join. 3 double crochets into the next space on the block we are working on. And slip stitch into the next space on the block we have finished. 3 double crochets into the space on the block we are joining. And we're doing this all the way along. Each block we're going to be doing the exact same thing. 3 double crochets into the block we're joining, and a slip stitch into the same space, corresponding space on the block we have completed. When you get to your corner, 3 double crochets into that corner space, going over your tail if there's a tail. So there's 3 double crochets, and now we're going to slip stitch in between, into the space between those shells or those little chiclets. We're going to slip stitch right into that space. So just pop your hook in between those blocks and slip stitch to join. And now we're not going to be doing anything. We're just going to grab our next block and straight away start your 3 double crochets into the corner space. Just making sure all of your blocks are facing down. We're working into the back of the last row of our stitches. And there's our 3 double crochets. We're going to slip stitch into the space after our corner on the block we have finished. 1 slip stitch, and into the next space on the block we're joining, 3 double crochets. And into the next space on the block we have completed, 1 little slip stitch into that space. 3 double crochets into the block we are working on. And a slip stitch into the next space on the block we have completed. 3 double crochets into the block we're working on. and a slip stitch in to the next space on the block we have completed. Now into our corner, 3 double crochets. Oh, there's my tail, so I'm going to work over my tail. 3 double crochets. And into the space between those blocks, just the space right between them, that is where we're going to slip stitch. So that's the only thing to remember for this round, is we're just after the corner, we're slip stitching into the space. And that is how we are working it for this round. So you can pause the video and keep working along, joining up the rest of your squares all the way along, just on one side. And I'll meet you at the end of our scarf. Way over here. So pretty already. Then when you have all of your blocks joined on that one side, we are ready to start part 4 of the join. We're just going to work around the block on 3 sides and then attach the second block. Just like we did for part 1, we're going to do it again for part 4. So at the end of our row, after those 3 double crochets into the corner space, slip stitch like we have been. And now chain 1, and we're going to work around our block. So 3 double crochets into that same space as our corner, or the same space we're working in, just finish off that corner. And then 3 double crochets into each space along the side. Into the corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Now you can rotate your work so it's easier for you to work around this block, and you can pause the video and keep working around. So 3 double crochets into each space, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all the way around. And I'll meet you when we get to this space right down here at the bottom. When you get to this corner where we began, or the last corner of our block, we're going to go in and make 3 double crochets into the same space. And now we're going to slip stitch into that space again. 1 little slip stitch, chain 1, and rotate your work so that we can work around our next block. So we're doing the exact same thing as we did for our first row, that we're just going to do that for the second row as well. So wrap your yarn and into the corner space of the new block, the block that has not been attached yet, 3 double crochets. Get everything laying down nice and flat. Find that next space on the block you have completed and slip stitch into that space to join. And 3 double crochets into the block we are joining. There's 3. Slip stitch into the next space on the block we have completed. And 3 double crochets into the next space on the block we are working on. Slip stitch into the next space on the block we've completed. And 3 double crochets into the block we are working on. So exactly the same as we did before. Slip stitch into the space on the block we have completed. and 3 double crochets into that corner space on the block we are joining. Slip stitch into the space on the block we have completed, and chain 1. Now rotate your work, and we're going to finish off this block all the way around. We're going to do our 3 double crochets into the same corner space just to finish that corner, right where we are, like that. And now 3 double crochets into each space, corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets into each space along the side. And I'll meet you when we do this join again. I'll just show you one more time how to slip stitch right into this area right down there between those blocks. So pause the video, keep working around, and I'll meet you for this last join. Well, the last join we'll do together. When you get back to the end of your block, 3 double crochets into that last space just to finish that corner. So 3 double crochets into the last space of this block. And we're going to slip stitch in between those blocks to join. So we're just going to put your hook all the way down over and slip stitch to join. And chain 1. Just like that. So now rotate your work, and you're going to join and work on the next block right here. Exactly the same as we did for this one, and you're just going to repeat that all the way down your scarf till all of these blocks are attached. So you can pause the video and I'll meet you when you are working on this very last block right here. And when you have all of your squares joined up at the end of our row, we are up here at this corner, and now we're just going to finish off this last side. So we finish off this corner just like a regular granny square. So I've already done 3 double crochets. So I'm doing my chain 2 and 3 more double crochets into that corner space. Like that. 3 double crochets into each space along the side. 3 double crochets into that corner space. Now we're going to slip stitch into the space between those blocks. So just pop your hook straight into that space and slip stitch and chain 1. So the slip stitch and chain 1 counts as our chain 2 for the corner. And now right into this space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And 3 double crochets into each of these spaces along the side of the next square. And into the corner where we began, 3 double crochets. And chain 2. Now you can join with a slip stitch and a chain 1 to secure your yarn, or we can do an invisible join. And for any garments, I like to do an invisible join just because it's a nicer finish. So cut your yarn without joining just after that last chain. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and go ahead, thread your needle. If you're using a sharp tip needle like I am, go ahead and use the blunt end. And if you don't have sharp tip needles, check out the link in the description box. They are a game changer. Now into our chain, the same spot we would slip stitch. I want to go under both strands of that chain, right there, and just slide that needle through. And keep an eye on where our yarn is coming from, the center of that chain. And poke your needle back down through where it came from, the center of the last chain we made. And now shrink it up so it looks like a stitch. See that? It just disappeared, so you don't get that lump of a chain one to join. And now go ahead and sew in your tails and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.